Not Catholic Twilight. Not Catholic Twilight. Not Catholic Twilight. It's not Catholic Twilight. It's not Catholic Twilight.
Perfect.
Okay. But can I give an actual answer to that too?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of times people are kind of surprised to hear that as a nun, I wrote a vampire book, or 3 vampire books, rather. And I also was pretty surprised when Jesus invited me to do that. It was not what I was expecting to do that Advent, but he really inspired me with this great idea for a story and was like, just try it, just trust me and write it down, see what happens. And so I did, and it ended up being really good for my spiritual life that Advent. It helped me work through a lot of different things that I had been kind of going through in my own personal faith, but it was also really enjoyable and a great way to spend time with Jesus. And so he started getting me thinking towards the end of that process of writing, like, what if you shared this with more people? And of course, at that point, I was like, no, never. Like, I don't want anyone to know that I was writing vampire books because that doesn't seem like something that nuns would do. But he kept prompting me, and over time, I felt inspired to share it, at least with some of my sisters who work in our publishing house. And I was blown away by their response. I was really worried that they would think it was kind of weird or like wonder why I was doing this. But when they saw the story and how many different Catholic elements were in there and the way that faith was treated throughout the story, they were so excited about it and they really wanted to share it with the world too. So that's kind of how I got into writing vampire books. So I would say that being a consecrated religious sister changes the way I write because I pray what I write and I write what I pray. Like, there's a lot of times where what's going on in my faith life comes out in my writing in different ways and in the types of stories that I'm telling. And then vice versa. Sometimes when my characters are working through something or in the plot with the conflicts as they're coming out in the story, it actually gives me new insight into something that Jesus has been trying to tell me in my prayer life, but maybe was not getting through to me with him just kind of being more direct. So for me, like, stories are a way really of going deeper into spirituality and faith in different ways. And so being a consecrated sister really helps me kind of stay grounded in that. When it comes to writing vampires in particular, I think that having a theological background actually really helped a lot in how I did my world building and the things that are underpinning my vampires, because I wanted them to be accurate to the way that Catholics view the world and reality and theology, and have that all kind of fit together while also staying true to like a lot of the vampire mythos and legends that are traditionally associated with vampires. And so when bringing together theology and kind of like fictional mythological storytelling was very helpful to kind of have those foundations of my religious life and of having studied theology to be able to do that well in a way that works really well for the story but is also true to the Catholic faith. Something that I really enjoyed about working with a Catholic publisher in particular is that the sisters really understood the heart behind the project and what I was trying to do with helping people with their faith, and really encouraged me to pray with the story as well and to work with Jesus through some of the editing and revision, so that this was a process that wasn't just in the writing that I was praying with the project and developing it with God. It was also during the editing that I would talk about the edits that I was being asked to do with Jesus, and we would work it out. And that was something that ended up being like a very helpful part of my spiritual life, even during the rewrite process, and that helped, I think, the story become more what God always intended it to be. Something that I hope readers will take away from reading this series and reading these stories is that you can have a personal relationship with God. Like, the way that God is shown in these stories and the way that characters interact with him is all something that is true of real life too. And you really can meet God at church, in the sacraments, through your personal prayer, through reading scripture. All of that is actually real. Another thing that I would really wish for readers is that if there is something that is holding you back from practicing your faith or from exploring the faith for the first time, that you know from seeing characters like Christopher work through all of his different spiritual problems, that it is never too late to come back to God or to turn to God in your life, that his mercy is always there for us, that he always wants us to be with himself. And so that's something that I hope that maybe reading this story can give readers the courage to take that step towards God in their own life. And I think the third thing that I'm hoping readers will walk away from is an idea that it's normal to be Catholic. Like, there's not a lot of secular novels that include religion in a significant way or a positive way, and I wanted to show some characters that are just normal teenagers, or vampires, whatever, living their faith and having God be a part of their life, and they're just regular people, or regular vampires, and that is something that is very possible for us, and that's important to see in the stories. We want to see people like us in the stories that we read as well. So that was another one of my hopes for the books. Something that has been so beautiful to hear from a lot of different reader responses. I've been getting letters and messages on social media. One of the stories that was shared with me from pretty early on after The Curse He Chose was released was from a young adult lady who wanted to let me know that reading The Curse He Chose, there's a scene, I'm going to try to do this without spoilers, there's a scene pretty late in the story where the main character realizes that she has not been being honest with God about all of her emotions and the things that she's been going through because she's afraid to get angry with God and afraid of how God will react. And that was something that this reader reached out to me to share, that she, in her own personal life, had really been running away from something that she needed to confront in prayer with God for a long time, but she had been too afraid to do that because she was afraid of her own emotions towards God and towards this situation. But she shared that after reading that scene, she was encouraged to actually go to Eucharistic adoration and talk about it with Jesus for the first time and just totally be herself and lay it all out there, and that God really pulled through and helped her work through that thing that she had been struggling with, and that she walked away with that with a conviction so much that God really did love her. His mercy was infinite. It was going to be okay. And hearing those kind of stories just helps it become so much more real for me, of realizing that okay, I might have written this story, but then once it's out there and it's with the readers, God is still working through it, and he's still doing so much in the lives of the readers, and that's such a grace to see that kind of playing out. I have had some readers ask me, is this basically Catholic Twilight? No, it's really not. There are a lot of things that have surface level similarities in the fact that it is a vampire story about a teenage girl who meets a vampire boy, but I am really coming at it from a completely different angle than Twilight. I don't have any sparkling vampires. The vampires in my book, I do try to make a little bit scarier and more like traditional vampires than you would see in a story like Twilight. And I think also just the way that I handle the faith themes and the romance and the more existential questions that come up are all done from a very different perspective and worldview. It's a very Catholic underlying setting for the story and for the characters' mentalities. And so it does read very differently from Twilight, even though I have had lots of people who enjoyed Twilight tell me that they also enjoyed my books. Based on reader responses, a lot of people have told me that they were expecting, because this was a Catholic book or because it was written by a nun, that it wasn't going to be a good story. It wasn't going to be well written. And they say it in this very complimentary way of wow, you totally blew me away. It was actually good. And I'm well, thank you, I guess. But something that I think a lot of people are assuming there is that because it's a story that involves faith in a significant way, or because I'm a religious sister for whatever reason, that there isn't going to be as much drama or action or romance as you would find in a typical young adult novel. And that is not the case. This is a book that is really fully written and written well that also does all of those things in a very Catholic way. So I would say that's the biggest misunderstanding about the series that I have heard back from readers about. It has been such a beautiful experience hearing my books turned into audiobooks, because me as the author, I wrote them, and I kind of had ways that I envisioned the characters sounding in my head or the way that certain lines would be delivered. But the first time I heard the audiobook sample from one of the auditions from our narrators, I was blown away by the fact that, they are really taking these characters and making them their own. And now it's this isn't just a fictional person that exists in my head. This is coming to life in a way that I, as the author alone, never could have done. And so it was so exciting for me to get to hear those first audiobook samples, not just of the first book with our female narrator for Elizabeth, but books 2 and 3 as well have a male narrator who is voicing Christopher. And I didn't have an exact specific idea of what Christopher and Elizabeth's voice would sound like in my head, but when I heard the narrators, I'm like, yeah, that's it, you got it. So that has been really exciting. So I haven't heard the entire audiobook yet, but they have sent me samples of different parts of the story. And something that I was very surprised by was by the Enchantress's voice. So she's one of the villains of the story that appears towards the end of the book. This is not spoiling too much, I hope. But she sounds so scary. Like, I don't know, something about like hearing her deliver these lines and like she's got the sweet but creepy thing going on there and like the very much like I'm in charge. Plus she has a cool British accent. So getting to hear that in the narration as I was listening to it on my headphones in the backyard of our convent, I like felt like, oh my gosh, like this is kind of scary. like she's a scary villain. And I think that comes through really well in the way that the audiobook is delivered. Like it's a more immersive experience for me in some ways hearing those audiobooks.
The Enchantress's icy blue eyes bored a hole in me as she smiled, holding a finger to her lips. Hush, little mouse. Not a sound.
So if you're wondering how faith and vampires can coexist, I think all you have to do is look back at some of the older vampire stories. A lot of the first vampire legends really arose in a very religious setting, in a very Catholic world. And so faith themes were interwoven into those legends in very interesting ways that come out actually in a lot of early vampire literature. If you've ever read Dracula by Bram Stoker, you'll see a lot of faith in there in different ways. And like, this comes up already in some like more modern stories as well. Like if you think of like vampires having sensitivity to crosses or crucifixes or holy water, not being able to step on consecrated ground. Those are all vestiges of that like older religious underpinning. But in my stories, I sought to really bring those Catholic elements back in full so that they are there as part of the story, not just as kind of like, oh, we need a vampire weapon, let's go find a crucifix. But it's not a superstitious way of the faith being integrated. It's like, okay, well, what does this actually mean? Like what's the Catholic understanding behind this, and why is it so effective against the evil that we understand vampires to be? And then bringing that into the story. So in my stories, there is a lot of consecrated ground discussion, but it also gets into things like the sacraments. The Eucharist especially is huge in the first book because that's actually the body and blood of Jesus. And of course, if vampires are more sensitive to these spiritual things that could hurt them, they're going to be really watching the Eucharist because that is Jesus himself. And so all of those faith things play into the story in very major ways when it comes to the discussion of vampires in particular. I think that I especially hope that this story is discovered by readers who maybe aren't sure how God feels about them or how they feel about God. Maybe readers who have questions about faith or religion. Maybe they're open and exploring. Maybe it's not something that they've thought about very much before. But I hope that this story can just be an invitation, a reminder that God is out there and he is as interested or more interested in you as he is in this vampire character that is trying to be redeemed through this story. And that he really desires to be in relationship with you. And I would hope for those readers that it might encourage them, after reading this story, just to take a step towards God, whatever that looks like, while also having a lot of fun enjoying a really fun vampire story. I also just want to mention that from very early on, when I was writing these stories, before I ever thought about getting them published, Jesus told me to start praying for the readers and the people who would encounter these stories in the future. And at that moment, that a little bit freaked me out because I was not thinking of sharing it with other people. But I have in fact been praying for all of the readers and all of the people who encounter this story from that point and still am today. Please know, if you are a fan of this series, if you have listened to the audiobooks or read the print books or the ebook editions, that we have been praying for you. Me and all of my sisters, the Daughters of St. Paul, have been praying for you. We will keep praying for you, and we hope that you continue checking out these books and enjoying the series and sharing it with lots of other people. There is something in the audiobook versions that does not appear in the print versions of the book. We have special bonus content, which I have been dying to share with people since I wrote it a while back. So in the first audiobook, I do share a little bit of my inspiration from behind how I ended up writing the stories behind the scenes, more in depth than I have done in any interviews, and it's kind of a crazy story actually, so you gotta check that out. But the thing I'm really excited for is that book 1 includes a bonus chapter from Christopher's perspective that you do not see in the print version of the book. And it's from a scene, I'm not gonna spoil what part of the story it's in, but it's from a very climactic scene where he keeps almost saying things and then stopping himself. And so it was really fun to get into his head and all of the ways that he was filtering what he was saying, and just seeing like what emotional state he was in, because Elizabeth has no idea and she really wants to know. And I feel like a lot of readers really want to know as well. So that's really fun for book 1. Books 2 and 3, you actually get to see the climax from the Shadow's point of view. And that was another fun character to write from his point of view, just where his mental state is at. For those of you who have not read the book, the vampire called the Shadow is a very like chaotic neutral character, very hard to predict. And so it was very fun like getting a little closer, writing in his head and seeing where he's at during the climax, because he was up to some stuff that I was not expecting, actually. And so you can get that extra perspective on the climaxes of books 2 and 3 by checking out the audiobook versions. The thing I enjoyed the most about working with Pauline Books and Media to shape the stories kind of during the editing process and getting it out there was really that my editors loved the story and they saw the deeper things that I was trying to do with it, and they helped me to bring that out even more. And there's also the fact that I originally wrote it as a standalone novel, like only one book, The Curse He Chose, and they loved the story so much that they really pushed me into exploring more of Christopher's backstory and also more of Christopher and Elizabeth's journey like into the future. And so the reason why it is a trilogy instead of just one book is because of my publishing house encouraging me to go that direction. So I'm really grateful for all of the help that they gave me in shaping the story to make it stronger. Making it less preachy was also another big thing, and making sure that it was really theologically sound in every way. Because sometimes when things were happening in the story that maybe I really wanted this to happen, and it's like, well, but what does this say about the faith? And it's like, okay, let's take a step back and kind of creatively workshop this to see how we can do both things, like good storytelling and good communication of what the Catholic faith is. So I'm very grateful to my editors and everybody at Pauline Books and Media who helped me with that. So if you want to learn more about the In Aeternum audiobooks, you can find them at pauline.org/audiobooks. And they're also on all the major platforms that carry all the audiobooks, so you can find it in many places. But please do check it out. I would love to hear what you think of them once you get the chance to hear them.